Hello, welcome in or welcome back to my channel. My name is Deb from DG Reads, and it is time to go on the attack for Realmathon. Realmathon is a month-long competitive readathon brought to us by Cassidy. It covers with Cassidy, and it is a lot of fun. I am on Team Paladins, which is hosted by Mel at Eleanor Reads and Deja at Deja's Book World, and we are the team with the dragon companions. I don't have my little furry dragon in costume today. She's had a little bit of an upset stomach this weekend, so I didn't want to do that to her, but dragons will be a part of this. If you're not familiar with the readathon, you have options to read for various reading prompts that get prompts for your team or can be used to attack the points of another team. And I am generally very much a defend at all costs type of a reader. I want to get our team as many points as possible because I know people are going to be attacking us, but sometimes there's a prompt that just sounds fun on the side of the prompt list that gives you all the options to attack another team. And so I figured, let's go ahead and embrace that for a week and go on the attack. Now, the prompt that convinced me that this would be a good idea, and the idea behind this particular vlog, is there is a prompt that has you rolling a d6 dice, and whatever number you get is how many words there needs to be in the title. And I love kind of a randomized way of picking books, and that gives me a lot of motivation when it comes to my reading, so I can finish a book and then find out what I'm going to be reading next. It also just is a fun way for me to kind of explore my TBR, pick up some things that I was planning to read this month, maybe a couple things that I wasn't planning to read this month, and just shake up my reading just a bit. So I did say dragons were going to be part of this. Well, that is because I have a dragon egg here. I figured, Kylie couldn't be the dragon all the time, so maybe we need to add a new dragon to the household. So this is just a little 3D printed egg, and within it, we reveal a dragon. Also, some dice, which will come in handy for the concept of this vlog. So I figured this would be a little fun addition to my shelves, and he is a fun, cute little dragon. He kind of matches Kylie's costume as well, so he's going to join us as we roll for our first book. All right, so my dragon friend and I are going to roll and figure out what my first read is going to be, and it's going to be a title with one word. Okay, as you saw, we have a one-word title to start things off, and I know exactly what I'm reading for this. I am going to be reading Daggermouth by H.M. Wolfe. This is currently a self-published, I believe, or indie published. It is being picked up and coming out later this year traditionally, but at the moment it is still a self-published book, and it's one that Cassidy herself read and really talked a lot about in one of her vlogs and definitely stirred my interest, and it is now going to be a buddy read in Mel at Eleanor Reads, so I am super excited to be reading this. All honesty, I've actually started already. I was going to be using this for a weekend challenge, and then my content plans changed. I didn't have a space to put one in the schedule, and we've been having really horrible winds and heat this weekend that really was just messing with my allergies, so it really wasn't going to work for a weekend challenge, and I therefore kind of was hoping to be able to squeeze it in here. So I'm really glad this came up. But if in the initial clips I say something about a weekend challenge, you'll know why, because it started that way. It's finishing differently. So that is where we're at with it. It's off to a good start. I'll give you that spoiler now, and then we'll cut over to my initial clip, which I did already film for it at the 20% mark, I think. So that's the plan for this one. And I'm tempted to say I'm going to roll a second one. I know this one's ebook only, therefore I might need an audiobook too, but I do have a couple of audiobooks to be finishing. Alongside this vlog, I am going to be reading Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. This is the current book for the Catch Up Book Club from Becca at Becca and the Books, and she kindly allows me to be a co-host for these. So since I haven't started this yet and the live show's in a week, I will be letting this distract me from this vlog and the books I'm picking for this vlog. I'm not going to be sharing thoughts in here because there will be a whole live show that will have happened before this vlog comes out, which I will try to remember to link for you down below. But in the meantime, I'm going to be making some daily progress in this, but otherwise focusing on my dice roll books, and I will be back with thoughts, of course, on Daggermouth. It is about 9:30 and I am quarter of the way into Daggermouth. I want to go up and get in my PJs and crawl into bed with some blankets and the puppy. She is thankfully seeming to be feeling pretty well this evening. She's enjoying being spoiled with the special foods and the like. And sometimes I wonder, does she intentionally try to make herself sick so she can get the special foods? This is a question sometimes I have. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Daggermouth. Daggermouth is a dystopian dark romance, and it is set in a place with very distinct hierarchy of the classes. The elites live in the heart, and they all wear masks. They live by very strict rules. No one can see your face except the person to whom you exchange vows, and that's your spouse, basically. And they can see you without your mask. No one else can. Not your children, not your family. I mean, maybe when your kids are kids, that we haven't seen kids. But in this case, we are following, to begin with, the prince, or the son of the king, emperor. Clearly, my brain's a little fried already. In any case, he is acting as executioner. He is executing rebels, people who have stolen food because there's not enough food amongst the poor, people who have done horrible things like fall in love. And if you fall in love with someone from a different class than you're crossing the rings, and that's bad, and you can be killed for that. He doesn't believe in love. He makes a comment, which I, in the buddy read, said, this is going to come back to bite him, because he said he doesn't understand anyone who would put their life on the line for such a feeble emotion as love. Paraphrasing there. But he just, has never really had that. And given the relationship he has with his father, and his father's kind of feelings about the family in general, the way he treats his wife, the way he treats children, you can see why Grayson doesn't really have a firm grasp on the concept of love. Our female main character, whose name is escaping me at the moment, she goes by Shade, like that's her rebel name, I guess you would call it. She is out in the lower classes, and her parents were killed by this king, and her parents were executed. This is something that was very formative to life, and she now is being given a contract to go and kill Grayson, the son. And she just sees him as this executioner who is following right in his father's footsteps. She's thrilled to get the opportunity to be the one to kill him, to cut off the king's line of heirs, to enact this revenge plot, basically, following the death of her parents. This, of course, doesn't go according to plan. Our main male character, our main female character are going to be forced to interact, and it does get bloody. It does get a little bit traumatizing, but that's kind of where I've left off, and now begins them having to interact for reasons. The book opens fairly quickly. Within the first 5 chapters, we get 2 rather significant smut scenes. We get Shade and her love interest, and then we get Grayson and a woman he hires. And this is a lot for me personally to open a book. I want there to be relationships and context and so forth before we get into the smut. And this book is doing kind of the reverse. The scenes do add some character development. I agree that it's there, but I think there could have been other ways to do it. But otherwise, this world is really intriguing. I do want more of the backstory about the origins of this world and why they created these rules around the mask and so forth. I'm hoping maybe we might get there eventually. I think there's some interesting characters, especially our 2 main characters are both rather interesting. Grayson has a lot of conflicted feelings about his role in this society, his role as the executioner, and his relationship with his father is not a good one. But at the same time, to some extent, he's following the party line, but he's also rebelling against it in some ways. Shade is very linear in her thinking, there is no gray, there's black and white, and she's going to have to expand that view quite a lot. Grayson's going to have to grow, I think, quite a lot, and I am very interested to see how this is going to go. So I am going to go upstairs, get cozy, take whatever Kylie's been looking at currently away from her and take her up with me and settle in for the evening. I had coffee this afternoon, so I'm not super sleepy, but my brain's feeling a little sleepy. So I think it's a little chilly. I'm ready to cozy up. And my goal was to at least get a third of the way through the book. I definitely think that's doable. I don't think I'm going to fall asleep too quickly. So that's the plan. If I could get past that, that would be great. That would set me up well for tomorrow because I have a lot of reading to do. I do also need to film at least one video, maybe two. So there's that. And the current weekend, we actually set our clock forward an hour Sunday night or Saturday night, Sunday morning. So we lose an hour. So I best get back to it and check in with you tomorrow. Good morning. It is about 10 a.m. on Saturday. It is so windy outside and I can feel my allergies and just the dryness hitting. So very glad that my plan is indeed staying inside today. I might have a library book coming in to the library, but honestly, I think I'm just going to wait and pick it up during the week because leaving the house just sounds dangerous right now. In any case, I made it roughly halfway into Daggermouth last night, and I am enjoying it more now that we kind of got past that original very smut heavy first 5 chapters and random people and so forth. I am having a lot of fun with it. The kind of dystopian setting, the way our characters are starting to interact and be forced into each other's proximity is going well for me. I can see the different views and why they're so different, but they're both very extreme, and I can see where both characters are going to need to have some character growth. So, like I said, I made it roughly to halfway last night. I was definitely fading toward the end, so I might need to rewind a little bit. Not rewind, but like back up a couple chapters, refresh myself of what I was consuming when my brain was half shut down. So that's the plan for this morning, and then to keep going on that. I have been buddy reading it with a couple of people and commenting back and forth, which is a lot of fun. It doesn't necessarily make me read the fastest, but I did kind of stop that because everyone else was in bed and I kept reading. So I need to go back and add some thoughts as well. This morning, I broke out my trusty dusty llama mug. This is from a Realmathon past where our team was known as the Ilma Llamas, and so I always have to break it out for Realmathon. It is a good throwback because I'm on Mel from Eleanor Reed's team, and she was the leader of the llamas. So had my first cup of coffee, definitely need to get some more. It is so windy outside right now. The windows are rattling. If you're hearing any background noise, that's why. I can hear everyone's wind chimes going off. It is quite the thing going on, so I'm very glad to be staying in today and curling up with my book. So I need to find where I put my Kindle. I've been doing some filming this morning. I've been up, I've been productive, gotten quite a lot done considering it's only a little after 10, but I'm very much ready to grab the puppy, grab the Kindle, curl up on the couch, and get back to reading. Okay, I am back because I have finished up Daggermouth and I had a fantastic time with this. I think my last clip was around halfway or maybe 40% into it. And at that point, I was definitely starting to get into it much more than I was at the beginning. I think it found its stride really around that third to halfway mark. And it really just had a lot of good moments. It had characters that I was rooting for. It had dire stakes. Absolutely check trigger warnings for this book because there is a lot of brutality happening on page, happening just off page, happening in the past but getting referenced in the present. I mean, our main character, Shade, or Shadera, is someone who witnessed her parents being brutally murdered, and she's now being forced to interact with the family that did that. We have the daughter of the king and what he has done to her over time and the way she has absolutely no freedom in this world. Women in general have no freedom in this world. They have little ways they're rebelling and fighting back, but that just takes more away from them in a lot of ways, and it is absolutely devastatingly heartbreaking. I think the relationships in here, or one of the relationships in here, moved a little bit quickly for my personal taste. We go from absolute enemies to feelings fairly quickly. I think time is passing in the story more so than time is being spent reading it, given that I read this book in less than 24 hours. But I think I can overlook that. I can see why in this situation feelings would be developing. But also, that's a little bit of a personal preference for me to kind of want things to be a little bit more of a slow burn personally. But I think the world setting of this, we don't get a lot of world building beyond the immediate circle. They're very isolated where they are, and we get glimpses of what maybe is happening in the outer world. I'm hoping maybe in book 2, because this is a planned duology from what I read, that will maybe get a little bit of a bigger glimpse of the world itself. But I did really like that there were stakes in here, that there were moments that actually had me holding my breath because I was on the edge of my seat and things hurt. There were outcomes that I don't like, not because I don't think they were well done, but because I wanted better for some of our characters. And yeah, I am definitely very, very eagerly waiting to have more people finish this. I flew through this a little faster than some of the people I was reading with, so I can talk more about it with them and see what other people are thinking. But this was one I definitely would recommend picking up. Like I said, please check the trigger warnings if you have anything that might be potentially triggering. This book has a lot going on in it, and I would recommend looking into that, or feel free to ask me if there are particular things you're worried about. But it is definitely one that I can see why it got a lot of hype, why it is getting picked up traditionally, and all of that. So with that, we do need to do another roll, and I'm going to switch you over to that camera rather than moving the whole camera. I'm filming the rolls on my phone, so we will do that and then figure out what that next book is going to be. All right, back with Dragon Friend, and we are ready for another roll. And we've got a title with 6 words in it. As you saw, we got 6, and 6 limits my choices a bit. I mean, it shouldn't, but for whatever reason, I have less options for a 6-word title. So if we get 6 again, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to start thinking on that now. But I am going to fit in a book here that I've already started. Apparently that's the theme, the other theme of this particular vlog. Who knew I'd be finishing all these books on day 1 of launching a new vlog? But here's where we're at with it. This is an arc that I've received. It actually is coming out in real time in 2 days from now. I was planning to try to get it into my last architect video, and I just didn't get to it in time. I started it to see if I could fit it in, and it wasn't gripping me in the sense that I was going to just fly through the whole thing really quickly. So I decided to end that architect and then maybe start a new one with this. And then I haven't been super motivated to keep going with it. So you're going to get my initial thoughts here, and I'm rambling. So the book in question is How to Survive in the Woods by Kat Rosenfield. And this is, like I said, a book that's coming out on March 10th. Probably didn't actually say that. I just said 2 days from now. You don't know what 2 days from now is. On March 10th, this is being released. I have a gifted audiobook from Harper Audio. This one, we are following a woman who is in a horrible marriage. She is someone who met this man, and he seemed so charming. We get to see the beginning of their relationship, and he definitely threw up some red flags for the reader pretty early on, but she missed them apparently. He's picked her up on a really difficult day for her, and he begins micromanaging how she's dealing with all of this. Eventually they get married, and he is controlling to an extreme. It's definitely an abusive situation. So again, with this one, do check trigger warnings. She winds up bonding with his college sweetheart, who's also involved in his business, and they wind up hatching a plan to get her out of this. The old girlfriend knows he's not a good boyfriend or husband or whatever he is, and she decides to plan a way out of this situation. They are going to go off into the woods with him, which sounds a little bit fishy that he would take his wife and his ex-girlfriend along the Appalachian Trail, but there is some way originally someone else was going to join them. That person drops out, so it becomes somewhat natural-ish. I do question it a little little bit personally, and they said about not having him exit the woods with them. And things don't all go according to plan. Our main character, she was raised by like a doomsday prepper, someone who knows how to live off the land and so forth. So there is some knowledge and skill here of how to survive out in these woods, but they feel like someone's watching them. They're hearing noises that don't seem to be animals, and there's just fishy stuff going on. So I am about 40% of the way into it. It hasn't grabbed me to the point where I can't put it down. I haven't read it in a couple days, but I think this dice roll has motivated me to pick it back up again, and maybe it'll be gripping me more. I have seen mixed reviews. I've seen a lot of 5-star reviews. I've seen some mid reviews, so we'll see where I wind up landing with it. But that is the plan for book number 2. Cassidy is looking so intently. And the reason for that is I just stuck my hand in this box of toys that I have for her that are old Bark Box toys and things that I just haven't given her because I don't always give them all to her right away. And look what I found. It's a dragon. Seems like since I got a dragon toy, she should get a dragon toy, right? Right. Perfect for this month. That's it. You can play. Actually, you can go finish your dinner and then you can play. Yeah? Good evening. I've been meaning to film this update for a few hours now, and it's already now bedtime. And I've done really a lot of not being productive. So I was productive at not being productive, maybe? Anyway, as you can probably tell, I am tired and ready for bed. But I did indeed finish up my book, and How to Survive in the Woods did pick up for me in the second half, but ultimately, while I was surprised with some of the twists, I did like that. I like that I had to question things along the way. We get answers about people's past and present, and it takes some twists and turns. It definitely has some kind of gorier moments, I would say. None of the characters in here were ones I really wanted to pull for and root for, and that doesn't always have to be something in a book for me, but I think in this case, if I had really liked one of the characters, it would have helped with the fact that I felt like the pacing was really off for me, that it went quickly in places and then dragged in places, and it felt like we were cycling a little bit, repetitiveness going on. Words are failing me at this hour. But ultimately, I think I'm settling on a 3 to a 3.5 for this one. It's not one that's going to stick in my memory. You're going to ask me anything about it by the time this vlog is live, I probably will forget I even read it. But it just didn't quite do what I wanted it to do. I still found some of the connections between the characters to be a little bit clunky. The reveals that we get, the relationships between our main character and both the man and the woman and someone we find out about from the past as well, gets very murky on who's at fault for what and when and so forth. So ultimately, not the best book for me, but it does mean we get to pick our next book, so that's exciting. Let's go ahead and move over. I'm going to do my roll, and then we'll figure out what book I'm going to read. All right, for rule number 3, I believe. 5. All right, we got a 5 this time, so we need 5 words and a title. And honestly, I could go for a fast thriller, what I'm hoping it to be a fast thriller. And a book that I have gifted from Kensington is She Thought She Was Safe by Terry Parlato. And this is one that has been calling to me. Just the idea of this white picket fence, but the blood dripping on it here. I think that just something about that cover. It's not a super elaborate cover, but just that little detail has called out to me. What I know about this one is we are following a woman who's reunited with her famous but distant father, and there's secrets. It's called a modern Gothic, which Gothic can work for me or it cannot work, but the idea of it being a modern but Gothic setting, atmospheric setting type things really work well for me. So I have hopes for this one, and I'm hoping that my dragon has steered me well with rolling this 5. So that's the plan. I'm going to keep going, and I will check in with you later. So before I get into my book, which I do have an update for you on. I have to give a teeny tiny little story time. I have talked before about how Kylie will sometimes bring food to bed. Like if I have a box of like individual packs of potato chips, she'll grab one and bring it up with her when it's bedtime. And then I also told the story not that long back where she got into a bag of Snickers and didn't eat any of them. They were individually packaged. And it was just such a funny thing because my mom's dog way back when in college did the same thing. She secreted away pieces of chocolate. And now my dog has this habit too, apparently. Well, she's done it again. I opened last night a subscription box that I received from Universal Yums. They're sending out monthly packages with snacks in them from different countries. And this month's country is Poland. So I opened up the package and there's always usually like a little envelope, for like a bag, I guess would be the better term for it, that has like little candies in it. And somehow either I left it out or she got to the box and took it out. I found this bag open with the candy coming out of it and I found a piece of the candy on my floor. So this is how I clued into the fact that Kylie had been involved. I didn't put candy on the floor. And then while I was eating dinner, I heard her get up to something and I saw her kind of skulking by and she had a piece of candy in her mouth, like an individually wrapped piece, so it's not like she was eating the candy. But I just went to go grab my book, which was in my bedroom, and found her in bed with chocolate. Again, individually wrapped. She's fine. She hasn't actually eaten it. She generally doesn't. She likes the crinkle of wrappers, so that's really what she's going for. But she brought me a bedtime snack, a chocolate raspberry candy. So anyway, very much not on target for this vlog, but hey, it just amused me. But like I said, I went to grab my book because I am now past the halfway point and she thought she was safe. In this book, we're following Emma and she's been through a lot recently. Her mother died and her marriage ended because her husband wasn't a great guy. He was having an affair, but also he had been gambling and had debts racked up that had guys after them and they were in a very dangerous situation. So she was separating from him anyway, going through all her mother's stuff, kind of as a way of coping, probably with both things. And she discovered through this who her father is. Her mother had never been willing to tell her. She didn't know. And now she's discovered that her father is in fact a famous author. She herself is a writer. That's kind of what she's hoping to do to land on her feet, to get back into the swing of supporting herself. But in the meantime, she reaches out to this father. The father welcomes her to come meet him, meet his family, and ultimately he offers her the use of his like lakeside retreat, second home, vacation home, whatever you want to call it. And she figures this is a good way to go in and spend time writing, not have distractions, and it's the perfect timing for this opportunity to come up. Unfortunately, once she gets there, it's a very close-knit community. These homes are passed down through families. They're not sold to just anyone from the outside. So she has heard a little bit about the people in the area. They know that somebody's coming to expect her. They don't initially know she's the owner's daughter, but that news starts trickling out, of course, eventually. And the kind of elderly neighbor is baking for her and cooking for her. There's a guy next door who seems interesting, who's around her age. And this seems like a really nice setup. Except the husband of the elderly woman next door is dealing with dementia. There's obviously some issues going on there. And I just double checked the synopsis includes this, so as part of the setup, I wouldn't have thought it would be spoilery, but did double check as well. But the neighbor, the husband, winds up dead. And it seems suspicious. She's the one who discovers him. There's something about it that doesn't feel natural. And she's not necessarily in the middle of the investigation, but it's such a small, close-knit little area around this lake that she is kind of in the middle of it as well. And this brings her father into town, her father's other daughter into town, because of course there's going to be a funeral, and they've all known each other for years. And the other daughter is not happy she's there. The father seems very happy she's there and to welcome the idea of another daughter. He also has a wife at home who's dealing with a difficult pregnancy. There's a lot going on in here, but I am entertained. I am curious what is going to wind up happening. Because this is such a close-knit community, it almost has to be someone within the community who's at fault here. Or did they do something to someone else from the outside who's going to come in? There's a lot of question marks in my mind right now, but I am really intrigued to find out what is going on. I did pick up from the library an audiobook copy to listen along with this, so I was able to take it out and about with me today, and it really does a good job of holding my attention, which is not always the case. So this is going well so far. I'm having a good time. I'm liking our main character, Emma. I'm liking that she does stick up for herself when she has concerns about people. She does have the guts to kind of say something or ask questions or find things out rather than letting things fester. And I'm really curious what this family has going on, because the synopsis that I was pitched with this one is that there are a lot of family secrets. And I do wonder, does the half-sister know what's going on? And is that partly why she doesn't like this new sister being here? I don't know. But I'm going to keep going on this one, eat my raspberry chocolate, and go to bed. That is the plan. So I will check back in with you. In the present moment in time, it is Wednesday evening, and the Weekend of Peace starts in 2 days. So I either need to wrap up this vlog or potentially just put it on pause and do a little bit more reading after the weekend. We'll see. I'm definitely wanting to do at least 1 or 2 more books just because I'm having fun playing with the dice and I want to keep that spirit going. So I think I probably will finish this one, maybe do 1 more dice roll before the weekend, and hope I can pick a short book, relatively short book, but then join you back after. Again, you don't need to know all this probably, but sometimes it helps me to hear myself say it out loud. Anyway, I'm going to keep reading and getting ready for bed, and talk to you later. It's been a pretty long day, so I'm doing sitting and being lazy, catch up with you. And I have to sit here anyway to do my next roll, so that's fine. Anyway, I did manage today at work to finish up She Thought She Was Safe. And overall, I found this a fun thriller. I think it went a few predictable routes, but there were a couple of twists and reveals that I did not see coming. There were a couple of places maybe I would have want fleshed out a little bit. We get some time jumps when our main character is suddenly in a new location or suddenly wakes up, things like that. But overall, I thought it was really engaging. It kept me hooked. It kept me wanting answers, and those are all things you want in a thriller. So this one is getting 4 stars from me. Had a good time. Thank you again to Kensington, and I'm excited to check out what we're going to have next. And our next roll is a 4. Okay, 4. So I decided to help myself out here with my TBR for the month because I'm leaving town in like 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks at this point, technically. And I still have quite a bit of my March TBR to do. And one that I definitely need to get to, we are trying to finish my Prompt Ball TBR, is Dying to Meet You by Serena Bowen. This is a gifted copy I received from Harper. I picked it for a prompt requiring a yellow spine. And that basically is what I remember about this one. I think we have a woman stalking an ex and then he winds up dead. That's kind of what I remember from the synopsis from putting this on my TBR, so hopefully that is somewhat accurate. But in any case, I am going to be reading this one next. It's not the shortest of books. I think it's like 13 hours as an audiobook because I do have a copy of that from the library, but I think I have today and most of tomorrow before the 48-hour readathon starts, so I'm going to try to finish this up and then we will resume our rolls after the weekend. I think that's the current plan, so I'll let you know once I get halfway into this one and we'll see how it's going. Okay, it's Friday morning. I am about to go to work for my half day. And it's a little bit early in the book, but I wanted to check in because I'm past the 3rd mark, about 35, 37%, something like that. I've been listening to it a bit this morning, so I haven't looked. And so far, this one's engaging. I'm having a good time with it. I'm realizing the camera's probably really crooked, but that's a problem for later. We're just doing a real quick update. Anyway, we are following Rowan, and she is an architect. She's She's working on this historic home that's pretty much in her neighborhood. And this is like her first big job out on her own without an agency and so forth. So it's a pretty big deal. On the side of that, she's just recently broken up with her boyfriend that she's only been with for a few months, but it still was a hard breakup. He just kind of ghosted her, sent her a text message, said it's over, no reasons, no anything, and she's pretty upset with that. In addition to that, she's a single mom. She's got a teenage daughter and a complicated past with her teenage daughter's father. And that father has been away for quite a long time and just recently kind of popping back up and asking to see his daughter, asking to talk to her. All of this is going on when she sees her ex on a tracking app. He had shared his location with her at one point while they were still dating, and she can still see him on this map. And she sees that he has pulled into one of their spots. And she decides to be a little nosy and go see who he's now taking to one of their spots. And she takes the dog out for a walk, casually stroll by the location, realizes something looks a little fishy. The door's open and there's no one else in the car. She goes over to open the door, realizing that he's there. I'll just go say hi. And instead his dead body falls out at her feet. This is now obviously very traumatizing for her. This is something that she needs to also answer questions with police with. She does the right thing right away, calls the police, lets them handle it, all of that. But she does get a little cagey with them about her reason for being there, about the app on her phone, and the fact that she's been tracking him because she doesn't want to look suspicious. And maybe that's going to get her in more trouble. I don't know. We're also following the daughter at times and her interactions, but primarily it's Rowan's POV that we are following. And I'm liking Rowan for the most part. I do wish she just would be a little bit honest. I think most women probably can understand the temptation of having the ability to track an ex and that it was perfectly innocent in that regard. And I can feel for her in the trauma and the feelings that are being discussed in here of he was an ex, we weren't close, but still finding him like that, just the fact that he died in general, all of this is pretty overwhelming to her, in addition to the work she's still doing and how that gets tied into the case and things like that. So it is going well. It's been a good setup. I don't know that it's necessarily so far doing anything that other thrillers aren't doing, but I'm having a good time and that's really the point. So I will keep going on this as I am running around today, getting ready for the weekend, and check in with you hopefully before the 48-hour readathon starts with final thoughts. Happy Friday, friends. I have finished my book literally 5 minutes before the 48-hour readathon begins. So I cut it close. I did some shopping, got myself a bunch of snacks and stuff for the weekend, and made it home. Have been snuggling with Kylie and finishing up my book, Dying to Meet You. I wound up really enjoying this one. I wasn't 100% sure in the first half if it was just going to be an okay thriller or how much into it I would wind up getting. But I did wind up really enjoying the investigation, the ways that our main character, Rowan, is helping to look into things, even though the police are investigating, felt fairly natural, like things she probably would have access to, would look into, and be able to maybe pass some of that off onto the police so they could continue with their investigation. I think the secrets that come out, it goes into definitely some potentially triggery issues. The home that they're renovating was once upon a time a maternity home for young unwed women. There's a lot of issues of consent, of adoption, of what women had access to in that period of time way back when for birth control, abortion, those types of things, how that changes over time. We have definitely some bosses taking advantage of people with some of the POVs that we get in here. I know I had mentioned that we had mainly Rowan as our POV character, her daughter sometimes, and that's true, but we do also get another POV in here that's kept a little bit fuzzy as to the details of how this person relates to the rest of the story, intentionally so, and you do get reveals on that later in the book. And I liked the relationships in here. I liked the relationship between the mother and daughter. Parenthood's not always my favorite thing, but apparently mother and teenager, that I can relate more to from being a teenager myself. And I liked the relationship that they had, teenagers going through hormones and attitudes and everything else, but also standing up for her mother in moments where she needed that. We also get more about their past, the daughter's father, and all of those relationships as well. I think this had a lot of really nice twists and turns, and definitely didn't see a lot of them coming. Altogether, this was a really solid 4-star read for me. So with that, we are going to go ahead and take a pause. I'm not going to roll again until after the weekend, I think, largely because it's really hot upstairs, because it's super, super hot outside as well. So we're going to put that off for now. I'm going to spend my weekend filming a weekend vlog, and then I will come back to you after that. So that weekend vlog will already be up before you're seeing this one. And yeah, that's all I have to tell you for the moment. I have to jump on to watching sprints because they literally should be starting right this moment. So I will do that and see you in a bit. Hello again. I'm currently doing some reading sprints on my channel, and those have been a lot of fun. We are currently in the middle of one, so I figured I'd do a quick update now. Kylie has been trying to help host, of course, and she got a new toy, so she's having fun too. And before I started, I did go up and do my next roll, so I'm going to cut over to that real quick so you can see what I got. Okay, we're back with our dragon friend, and ready for another roll for this one. And we have 5. And for some reason, I had books in mind for everything except a 5-word title. And of course, that means I've had to have a 5-word title. So the first one that caught my eye that I knew I could get on audio, that's a priority since it's Monday and we're going into a work week, or we're in a work week now, I suppose, was At Dark I Become Loathsome by Eric LaRocca. This is one that I've had some concerns about. I hadn't necessarily heard the best reviews, or either that or I got it confused with another book I hadn't heard the best reviews of. But this is a Twisted Retreat book I got. It's a very quick audiobook as well, so I figured might as well give it a shot. And I am now about 90 pages in to what is like a 220-page novel, so it felt like a good stopping point. And so far, my feelings are a bit mixed. We're following a man named Ashley, and his wife died of cancer. His son was taken from him, and he's dealing with his grief in whatever ways that he can. This involves getting a bunch of piercings such that he's constantly being stared at. He's still been looking for his son and trying to follow an investigation to try to find him, but is losing hope with that. And something he's started is reaching out to people on the internet and basically looking for people who are borderline suicidal or actually suicidal and conducting a ritual with them. And this ritual involves basically burying them alive intentionally with their permission, and then quote unquote resurrecting them, bringing them back out of the ground and caring for them after the fact. And this is meant to fully transform their view on life. And in this, we're getting to watch him do some of these rituals. We're also getting like write-ups of his services, how he's advertised his services, what the services entail through some mixed media. The kind of story within the story almost is a text message exchange with someone who's trying to book his ritual service. And they are scheduling this, but then also saying, but I also need to tell you a story. And then there's a whole like one-sided text message, not exchange because it's just him, of text message after text message telling this story about a sexual encounter between a young man and someone with wealth, and then tricking him into believing that he's underage and all this weird stuff. It gets very gory, it gets very graphic, it gets very mutilation heavy, it gets gross in many ways, and that's the part where I'm not sure. I find the whole ritual concept kind of interesting, and seeing where that's going to go. I don't know where this story within the story, this text message exchange within direction the story is going to take things, but for whatever reason, this has sexually excited our main character somewhat, who was a little bit ambivalent to both men and women prior to this, and he had some interactions with his son that weren't positive, that he feels guilt over, and there's a lot of emotion going on in here. And I'm really curious if we're going to find out how he went from dealing with grief and loss and the fear of what's happened to his son and the guilt over what's happened to his son to him deciding on doing these rituals. I don't really have a firm grasp of how much time has passed from him losing his son to the present day where he's doing these rituals. And yeah, I'm not sure. With this author, I expect to be disturbed, and it's pulling this off. And it's like a train crash you can't quite look away from. So, I don't know. I'm going to continue on. It should not take me that long. I read the first 60 pages in like 30 minutes. It's really quick reading. So, I'm going to continue on and see it through to the end and see what my final feelings wind up being. And you will know once I know. I brought my little dragon friend down because it's time for him to find a permanent resting spot on my bookshelves and to wrap up this vlog. I did make it most of the way through At Dark I Become Loathsome. During my sprints last night, I had like 30 pages left, I think, at the end of those, so I did finish them up shortly afterwards, and I've been processing thoughts since then. There was a lot about this book that worked well for me. There was a lot about it that did not work quite as well for me. So I think the character work, the study in grief, the study in guilt, and how this character is putting that into some weird, disturbing ways of expression and quote unquote helping people, but is he really helping people? Is he further traumatizing people? It takes some dark turns with his rituals as we get further into the book as well. The stories within stories in here didn't so much work for me. We have the story that he hears from this potential client, let's call them, I guess. And I didn't feel like the payoff of that, going through all this really disturbing, gory, sexual stuff, really had a ton of payoff. I guess it informed us a little bit about the client's personality. Is that the right word? I don't know. Maybe. But to some extent, I feel like it also had some shock value going for it, which isn't my favorite thing. And then we also get a story within the story from our main character. And it's another one that's rather disturbing. It's very sexual in a quote unquote out of the norm way. And again, it does inform the character. So I can kind of see why it's there, but also just not a for me type of element in terms of how we develop characters. The synopsis of the book, I feel like, gave me a little bit of a false expectation. It talks about him connecting with this person and being both revolted and fascinated by his story, and it begins a relationship that traps the two men in an ever-tightening spiral of painful revelation. There really isn't a lot of the relationship in here. We really are focused mainly on Ashley. And yes, they have this online interaction. We get interaction again at the end, but it's not what I would call a relationship that forms and spirals and lots of revelations between them. There are definitely revelations at the end, but I don't know. It wasn't exactly what I expected going in. I think I'm going to give this 4 stars because I think the writing was good. I think I can see what he was setting out to do. It definitely hit on the disturbing and the dark, and the ritual stuff I really found interesting, and the way that adapts as the book goes further along, and the way our characters' feelings about it change as it goes further along. I do wish we'd gotten more of the origins of this, how he started doing this, and so forth, and how the found footage, almost feeling the mixed media stuff kind of wrapped in, because that kind of goes away further into the book, or maybe I just didn't notice it as much, but I think it does kind of go away further into the book, and there's reasons story-wise why I can see why it would go away, but I don't know. It's one that's going to be still percolating in my brain, I think, for a while. So that's why I'm giving it 4 stars. So with that, I am going to go ahead and wrap up this vlog here. Me and my dragon are going to be getting ready for work. Actually, my dragon's going to be hanging out on the bookshelf and my furry dragon's going to be watching me get ready for work. Let me know in the comments below if you have been participating in Realmathon. Have you used this prompt to figure out a title length for the readathon? If so, what did you choose? Have you read any of these books? Give me all your thoughts. And if you've made it this far and you don't have anything to comment, how about a dragon emoji in the comments to let me know you were here? If you could hit that like button below, I would surely appreciate it, and subscribe if you're interested in more of my reading challenges, more of my book reviews, and more of my bookish content in general. But for now, I'll leave you here and see you real soon in a new video.